We're getting in some new numbers that show just how devastating the shutdowns have been for the economy. Unemployment rate rose in all 50 states and D.C. last month, and 3 of them, Nevada, Michigan, and Hawaii, now have jobless rates topping 20%. Nevada leading the pack at 28.2%. With nearly 1 in 4 American workers now out of a job, millions of people, they're unable to pay their bills. Just last month, 15 million Americans missed a credit card payment, and another 3 million didn't pay their car loan. 4 million more could not pay their mortgage. Now, to make matters even worse, expanded jobless benefits, they're running out in the month of July, and Congress cannot seem to agree on a plan to extend them. If they don't reach an agreement, that additional safety net for millions would disappear. I want to bring in our guest to discuss, certainly equipped for this subject, Gene Sperling. He's former economic advisor to both Presidents Obama and Clinton. He's also author of the new book, Economic Dignity. I want to get to the book and some of the big ideas that it raises, but let's go back to '08 in terms of, with the benefit of hindsight, what worked really well, lessons that could be adopted now, and what would you have done differently also as it relates to the transparency or the oversight of it and, you know, the fire hose nature of where to get the money to so it has the most beneficial immediate impact for the people who need it most?
I think that the lesson there was that the economy can recover, but there's a segment of people that are hurt so deeply for so long. And so what I do think is right is that in '09, you were basically just giving funds that could go help get capital in the major banks. And you did have an $800 billion American Recovery Act, which was good, but you never had the broad support from both parties to really help people who lost their homes, who might suffer deeply. So I think you really have to make sure when you're in a financial crisis that you are not allowing devastating harm to take place. And you look at these states, whether you're a blue or red state, it's not your fault that revenues have dried up because of a once in 102-year pandemic. If you don't give those states some relief, you're going to have massive layoffs of teachers, of state troopers, of first responders, and there's not going to be the ability to make sure people aren't evicted, that they stay in their home. And we've already seen, heartbreakingly, hundreds of thousands of small businesses that did not need to close. You're going to see those lost forever. Those are often family businesses built up for generations and are going to be closed simply because we had too weak of a federal response. So I really think you have to focus your resources to the people who are the most in need, and if they don't get help, could suffer not just a little bit of inconvenience and harm and shortfall in savings for a period of 6 months, but it could ultimately affect their entire economic future.
Let me pivot to, and you talk about this in your book, Economic Dignity, but if you go under the premise that you never let a crisis go to waste and you treat it as an opportunity, I think it would be fair. You probably got to go back to FDR and the New Deal, to probably see at least the scope of the challenge we're dealing with. What kind of things could the right president try that would both get the economy back going, but also make it a more equitable playing field here from obviously where we were before the pandemic struck?
Well, one of the things I talk about in the book is that line Martin Luther King says in 1968, where he not just says that all labor has dignity, but that someday our country will realize that the sanitation worker is as essential as the physician to our well-being. Well, that's kind of this moment. This has really been a moment where we've had to look at jobs and workers that we've underpaid, not given security, and say, wow, those jobs are essential to our lives. These are people putting their lives on the line. Without the farm worker, without the caregiver, without the nurse assistant, we can't make it. And I think that it is making us ask ourselves, what is it that somebody who's contributing, serving their family, serving the country should be insured of? Of course, this is a free market economy. It's a capitalist economy. Some people will do much better, have bigger houses, bank account. But I think the question that can be asked here, that can be our New Deal, is what is that basic economic dignity compact for American workers? Is it right that a nursing assistant is putting her life on the line for our sick relatives, but she couldn't take a day of paid sick leave for her own family? Should 50% of farm workers not have health care? So I think that if there's going to be that new FDR moment, it's not going to feel like a bunch of separate programs. It's going to be America, don't we believe that if you're working hard, if you're doing your part, you're contributing, you should have a basic amount of legal protection at work. You should be treated with respect, and you should have the health care and wages and paid leave that allow you to raise your family with a degree of economic dignity. That could be the new Deal for workers that the right type of president could seize the moment and try to push through a new Congress.
You know, to me, especially now, I still wonder the framing of the argument from either the candidate or the party, in this case the Democrats, where you should have the farmers, the smaller farmers who have seen the lion's share of relief go to the big farming conglomerates, and they're left out on this side. You certainly could see with now a Republican Congress talking about cutting off the unemployment benefits, over the jobless benefits, because they believe it's too much of a cushion right now. And this is affecting people for the first times in their lives. They find themselves, going to food banks, for example, impact them. Health insurance. My God, I think you probably found a lot of converts in the last few months with a rising number of people who've lost their health insurance in the middle of a pandemic. But yet, I can already see that's going to be spun as socialism or AOC. She's now in charge of the party, and this is not what America is. How does it get shaped that it's still part of a capitalist model, but it's looking out for the regular guy, and it doesn't get twisted into something, like welfare gone wild?
So, what I try to say in the book, and I think is important, is, we are a market economy. We're a free market economy, but it doesn't mean we're one without values. And I think that people are realizing how deep the holes in our kind of economic security net are, and that having a stronger guarantee of economic dignity benefits not just some other that they think they'll never be part of or try to diminish, but that can help all of us at different parts of our lives.
Isn't it a challenge, though, Gene, that we live in such a tribalized time? I mean, just look at the fight over the insanity of just asking somebody to wear a mask, and somehow that's a litmus test to your freedom for some people. What you're talking about is believing that you're part of something bigger than yourself, and that there is a national compact, including in that is sacrifice and looking out for the self-interest of someone beyond yourself. Is that manageable in the climate we're in right now?
Yes, I'm as discouraged as anybody by the tribalism, by the lack of respect for truth, that some people may die because they're believing an ideological view about the science of the coronavirus. But I guess all I can hope for is that we pull together to try to seize on that heart of America where they are cheering the people on the front lines. They're cheering the essential workers. They're recognizing they have value and dignity. And when I look at things like raising the minimum wage, I look and say that didn't just happen in San Francisco, New York City. That happened in Arkansas. That happened in a very conservative state. And why? Because I think it reflects that view that those are people doing the best they can for their family. They're contributing to their community. They're contributing to their country. And that, yeah, you don't owe people riches. You don't owe people, an easy way out. But yeah, when people are all doing their part, there's a basic common humanity, a basic dignity in all of us feeling that we can care for our children, that we can be there for our older parents at the moment, and that none of us have to, as we've heard before, sit in the parking lot of the emergency room, afraid to take their child in because they don't know if their health care is strong enough. I think those really offend basic American ideals, and I think there is a chance that you could see a consensus come, even if you can't completely reduce some of the political tribalism that has grown, no question, under the Trump presidency.
Well, there's a lot of big ideas in the book. Again, economic dignity. Gene Sperling, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
And up next, we take a look at politics. A scathing new ad from Biden here, new tone in the attack. Also, new polls out, not just bad for the president, but for Republicans running for re-election, some very frightening data. We'll get into that, plus the debate over mail-in voting. All that straight ahead.